Professor Marcel Verweij, what is applied ethics?
What is applied ethics?
Yeah.
Applied ethics is doing ethics in a practical context. That would mean thinking about obligations, thinking about ideals, about values, and not in a very abstract or philosophical way, but especially also to see what sort of applications people have in specific practices, like in healthcare, like in military practice, public health, humanitarian aid, etc. So in all those practices there are problems in relation to values, so problems with human rights, for example, and people might see themselves confronted with dilemmas where it's not clear what sort of obligations they have, what sort of actions they need to do or might be required to do. And then applied ethics means reflecting on such problems and trying to present arguments and options which could clarify those situations.
In that way, applied ethics can have influence in society?
Yeah, I think it should have influence, not necessarily in that people who have studied applied ethics or who are working in that field are simply telling to all the others how they have to behave or what sort of things they must do or should not do. But much more, I think that applied ethicists have a role in contributing to reflection on those situations. So contributing to helping people think about their situations, think about the dilemmas they have, and in that way they hopefully enable persons to make decisions which those persons can defend towards others. Because I think that's often what ethics is about, that we are able to not just explain but justify our decisions towards our fellow human beings. And the contribution of ethics is that hopefully it gives people reflection, but also the words and the concepts that might be useful in such justifications.
Can you tell us something about the current situation of applied ethics in Holland?
I always say that that Holland is the country with the highest number of ethicists per square meter. So there are quite some people working in ethics, and certainly if you look at government decisions of companies, healthcare institutions, many people consider it quite common that ethics is part of their daily work. So in that sense, I think maybe there's still a lot to be done, but I think this is quite a fruitful context to do applied ethics. There is also something else, maybe something for which Holland is also sometimes criticized. But, I think the part of the culture in the Netherlands is that we like to do things openly, to be explicit in the things we do, and also explicit in the arguments for what sort of things we do. So, for example, of course, there's a huge debate on how the Netherlands are dealing with euthanasia, for example, and euthanasia, well, voluntary euthanasia is legalized in the Netherlands. But that has been legalized after a long debate and also a lot of knowledge about what exactly is happening in the Netherlands. Because I think most people in the Netherlands value positively that we are able to discuss things which are more or less taboos in other places, even though it might well be that, I don't know, in Peru, it might be that, say in France or in Germany or in the United States, some forms of voluntary euthanasia are happening, but they are happening, say, under the table, so no one will know about that, or it will not be discussed. And I think it's typically Dutch to think that is not a good situation. If decisions are being made which are so drastic, so fundamental about people's lives, then such decisions should be made in the open. There should be a debate within society about whether such acts can be justified. And I think that's quite common in the Netherlands, and that has caused that many issues are being discussed quite openly in the Netherlands, which probably would be seen as taboos in other countries.
What about your personal interest in applied ethics?
My personal interest?
I mean, about your research and books.
What my interest is? Yeah. Oh, my focus is on issues in what we now call public health ethics. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see that in bioethics, for decades, this field of studies has been developing and growing, but especially with the focus on what's happening in healthcare institutions, in medical practice, in the interaction between physicians and nurses on the one hand and patients on the other hand. So all those situations and actions are related to treating, curing and caring patients with specific diseases. And I think since some 10 years there has been a shift, stronger focus on preventive medicine. So not just thinking about how physicians should deal with patients, but especially also about, well, what sort of role medicine, healthcare could or should play towards healthy citizens. So think about vaccination programs, screening programs, health promotion. If you look at the number of people in many countries in the developed world, the number of persons with obesity, which might lead to possibly to certain diseases, and society has to pay for healthcare of those diseases. So many people are thinking about, well, do all individuals always have, say, the freedom to live completely as they like, or should there be a little bit more regulation, maybe not compelling people to have a healthy diet or something like that, but we could at least promote that people will have a little bit more exercise, will walk or have exercise more often, things like that, use their cars a little bit less. And similar issues arise in infectious diseases control, where you can't leave it up to individuals to make their own decisions about whether or not they want to vaccinate themselves or their children. It's important for society to have something like a protection for the whole population, and then you need sufficient numbers of people who are vaccinated, for example, against certain diseases. And here you see that the justification for such policies might be quite different from the justification of how a particular physician should treat an individual patient. In the latter case, you can imagine that, in a way, the patient always has the last word. So if the physician wants to have this or that therapy, and the therapy might have a kind of nasty side effects, it's quite reasonable to think that always the patient should know what's happening, should be able to, maybe even to refuse treatment, or at least to discuss with the physician whether treatment makes sense in the first place for this patient. But now in public health ethics, most policies are not just aimed to do something for this individual patient or for this individual person, but they are meant to create some sort of protection which is beneficial to everyone, all persons in society. And then it's less self-evident that this individual always has the last word.
Thank you very much, Professor Verweij.